Man, Minnesota once again shows its lovely face of weather and all the extremes. You know, we started the week off getting sunburned if you weren't careful because it was 70s. It hit 80s one day. Thank goodness for Blackfish. I was neck gaitered up. I had on my UPF shirt, staying comfortable, staying cool, and then it just transitioned this weekend into 30s when you wake up. Felt like it should be snowing. It was cold. I was wearing my soft shell bibs, my Gale hoodie. I was wearing my my Aspire and Endure rain suit over the top because it would rain sporadically, and that was cold. And it was only in the 40s this weekend. Anyone that was out fishing this weekend felt springtime Minnesota weather. But the bite was good. We caught a lot of fish. The fish were snapping, so the bright side is the water stayed in the 50 degrees. It got into the mid to upper 50s this last week, 56, 57, and it didn't drop back into the 40s. It was still low 50s even today as the day progressed and things got later in the afternoon. So we're on track. Fish are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The crappies are spawning everywhere. If you're seeing dark colored males, they are guarding the nests. They are doing that sort of stuff. Some females are still moving in. Some have already moved in, but the crappie bite's pretty good in the shallows, and I expect it to be that way this entire week. Bass, similar situation. You're probably seeing spawning largemouth bass here in the Twin Cities. Let those big fish do their thing. If you see them in the act, or if you see them kind of actually staging specifically to lay their eggs, you know what? It's tough. You see a big fish, you want to catch it. Back off, catch them next week. You know, do that sort of thing. So, but the bite's pretty good. Get out there, chase some fish. I mostly fished bass this entire week. I didn't chase walleyes much at all. Caught a bunch of pike fishing for bass. Didn't target the panfish a lot. I focused heavily on bass this last week. Fished a handful of different lakes, a lot of different presentations, but there were some commonalities and some things I found to be the most consistent. Inside weed lines, dock lines, good dock structure with mucky weed transition areas seem to hold the most fish. Some back bays were holding some fish, but they kind of are sliding out onto that inside weed line. Not uncommon to find them. I did notice though, one big tip was stay off the fish. When you get up on top of them and you'd see them, they were spooky, they didn't want to bite. At least the lakes I was on, I would back off. So if I knew those fish were on the inside weed line, I'd back off, I'd make further casts to those fish. How did we catch them? Of course, the tried and true wacky rig caught a lot of fish this last week. And I've been using that chameleon candy. You can see it changes colors depending on the direction that I put it. This chameleon candy Cometa from Mr. Twister. It's in a league of its own for a color. It's kind of got that watermelon look when you get it from a certain angle, and then a purple look from another angle. A lot of great attraction in terms of color and profile and how it looks in the water, that chameleon candy. And nothing special for the setup really. I've been fishing a 7-foot medium action rod for that. I put a 2500 series Stratic CI4 or a 3000 series. The 3000 series and even the 4000 series gives you castability, larger arbor, it casts smoother, line pickups a little quicker. It's nice, you can set the hook. I've been fishing a braided line, a 20-pound braided line. No stretch, great sensitivity. I can feel that fish and set the hook home hard for that setup. It's been working really good for wacky rigging. What I've done too, if I catch some of these fish, let's say in 6, 7, 8 feet of water, some fish have been sitting in that zone, I still use that chameleon candy. I love that color. I've been stuck on that this last year. I mean, you can see it in the package. It just looks awesome. Catches a pile of fish, and I've been fishing that drop TG tungsten jig from Clam Outdoors. Been putting that on there in either an 1/8 ounce predominantly, maybe a 3/16 depending on the wind, and I've taken that chameleon candy. I bite about an inch off the tip, and it's almost like a glorified a Ned rig. Nothing too fancy, nothing too over the top. Great sensitivity, same rod setup, that medium action 7-foot, 20-pound braid. Great sensitivity. I can feel the bottom. I can fish this effectively in wind, and I can let it sit there. I can let it sit in the bottom. The fish come and pick it up. Kind of a 1-2 punch, wacky rig, modified Ned rig with that tungsten drop TG jig head. Works exceptionally well on these largemouth bass. One thing that I'm sure you're all using and catching a pile of fish on, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it, chatterbaits. I've been throwing chatterbaits pretty religiously now the last few years. I throw a lot of spinnerbaits and stuff like that for guide clients and stuff, but lately I've been throwing chatterbaits for a lot of people. Chatterbaits work exceptionally well because you can fish it just like a spinnerbait or a retrieve bait. You can cast it and you can just reel it in and catch fish. And they smoke this. It's a lot of fun. When the fish hits it, you know you got one on. You can set the hook hammer at home. A lot of companies are catching on to this and building great chatterbaits. I fish a variety of different models. I've been fishing a lot of stuff lately from Z-Man, the jackhammer. That one has been phenomenal. I've caught a bunch of fish on this. Got a lot of different colors that I've thrown. You know, whether it's you know, a quarter, half ounce, 3/4 ounce, or 3/8 ounce, 3/4 ounce. That's kind of my spectrum. So 3/8 up to 3/4. Half ounce tends to be my standby because it doesn't dive into the weeds, doesn't get too balled up. Works great, very well. And wicked mean hook on this bait. I've caught a ton of fish on this. Plan to catch a bunch. I tip them though. A lot of anglers just tie them on and throw them, and they'll catch fish. Don't get me wrong. But I've been throwing, adding some type of a paddle bait in the back. A 4-inch sassy shad from Mr. Twister's been my go-to. Thread that on the back. Then when I retrieve that, you get that extra vibration, attraction, wobble power. But the chatterbait's been awesome. It's caught a pile of fish for me, and I plan to fish it a lot more coming up here as well. It's just a fun bait to fish, especially when it's a little cold, cooler out. I can cast this, have a pair of gloves on, work the bait, and I'm just fishing a Chronix CI4 from Shimano. Super lightweight bait casting reel. I can cast this thing a country mile. If you're not careful, you can almost, I feel like I'm almost spooling on a cast, and I'm fishing a medium heavy 7.6 to 7'10" rod. So this one just happens to be that Jason Mitchell Elite Series. I've been throwing that. Works really well. That medium heavy rod is going to be your workhorse for chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, pitching jigs. It just works exceptionally well, and you can really get some slinging power on that chatterbait. And it's so fun right now. Anyone that's out there catching fish on chatterbaits is probably, it can probably relate to what I'm saying. It's addicting. You just reel in and just thump, set the hook. You feel like you're one of them guys and gals on TV. So, wacky rig, modified jig worm Ned rig. If you need to get down there a little deeper and maybe fish a little slower, but you want to make more contact with the bottom. And then the chatterbait. Those have been the 3 go-tos for me. Last week I threw a lot of swim jigs. Swim jigs will still catch a pile of fish. If you want to throw that instead of a chatterbait, swim jigs are great. I've been fishing a little more aggressive as we get into these middle upper 50-degree water temps and been chasing fish that way. Tip the chatterbaits with something with a nice paddle tail. I use that 4-inch sassy shad from Mr. Twister. Works exceptionally well. Also holds up, is very durable. There's nothing more frustrating than when you get bumped or catch one fish and the paddle of your paddle tail rips off. That's where these sassy shads come into play. You've probably all used a Mr. Twister sassy shad in your lifetime. They make a 4-inch version that fits exceptionally well on these chatterbaits. So get out there, chase some fish. I'm expecting things to turn back around again this week for the good. Weather looks like it's going to start hitting the 70s again by the end of next week. We got this cold weather behind us. Tomorrow is going to be back into the 50s, even 60s for Monday. And then it's just going to progressively get nicer. So looking forward to a great week. Who knows, maybe I'll try to catch a walleye this week on a few bites, see if we can get a report for you on walleye fishing, but I've been predominantly fishing bass. The bite's so good, it's hard not to chase largemouth bass. So get out there, have some fun, be safe, catch some fish, take a kid out, get your mom out, get your grandma out, get your uncle, your aunt, get someone out fishing with you, expose them to the sport if you haven't already, and share some of those memories and time in the water. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week, catch some more fish, good luck.